Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2026, and our dear friend Pepe. Yeah, we are almost losing the date. So nice to have you back, Pepe.
So nice to have you to have me with you, and I worry about you for a few days already.
Yeah, yeah.
So Nima, before everything, and I'm sure our audience wants to know, give me your vision of what's really going on,
Yeah.
your analysis and your gut feeling as an Iranian.
The United States and Israel started attacking Iran by assassinating the supreme leader and the commanders in chief. They thought that they would collapse, that could collapse, because in the mind of Israelis, let's put it this way, Mossad and Israelis thought that everything is dependent on the supreme leader of Iran. They have not a little bit of understanding that the system doesn't work this way. We've been talking about this for such a long time, that the system is not dependent on a particular, even if that's the supreme leader of Iran. That was hugely, in my opinion, a miscalculation on the part of the United States and Israelis. And Donald Trump, it seems that he was bought in this sort of concept that they can collapse the Iranian government, the Iranian state, by killing the supreme leader of Iran, which was, they were talking, the propaganda machine was talking about that he's in the tunnels, he's going to Moscow, he's not inside Iran. He was working in his office when he was attacked. That shows how courageous are Iranians in this fight. They're not afraid of anything. Even the supreme leader of Iran was a significant sign for the people, for the government, for those people who are in the military in Iran, in the intelligence, to understand even the supreme leader is sacrificing his life. He's prepared for everything to fight back. I think that was a huge miscalculation. What has happened? They started with that. And then the things that they see, what is happening in the Arab states in the Persian Gulf, Iran started attacking all the US bases. They have almost destroyed most of the bases in the Persian Gulf. And the attacks are getting heavily to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem. And so far, they couldn't fly over the airspace of Iran. All the attacks were from the outside. They couldn't invade the airspace of Iran. It's all propaganda. If the United States is controlling everything, it's all propaganda. And they're using drones to attack particular buildings in Iran. They started with, how put it, the besieged, the police offices, all of that. They're attacking these sort of buildings right now in Iran. But they're running out of targets because they don't have intelligence on the ground in Iran, because the intelligence was rooted out in the aftermath of 12-day war. That's why they're so blind in their attack on Iran. That's why they're killing children. They're killing civilians as we talk, Pepe. That's the objective, the main objective of Donald Trump and Israelis. They have failed in achieving their objective in Iran. And this is a war of attrition right now in the mind of those people in Iran. And they see it's a long war, and they want to see how prepared the United States is to go that far. And I don't see Israel sustaining. Israel going to be devastated as an outcome of this war. And the United States, their airplane, their fighter jets are not in the region right now. They put all of their fighter jets, they were in Jordan, some of them in the Arabian Sea. Right now, they moved all of them to Cyprus, and Iran is attacking Cyprus. They're going to move from Cyprus to somewhere else. This is my understanding of the current situation so far. Let's switch to you. What is your understanding of the situation?
Your analysis is fundamentally correct, Nima, and with the key details especially. Let's get deeper into it in terms of the Iranian response, which was stunning. And it's no wonder that my first column, which today is Tuesday, right? My first column came yesterday, I think. I don't
Today's
know when
Monday.
exactly.
You're getting to Tuesday. Here is Monday. Yeah,
Because I am in Asia, I am way ahead of everybody.
I
You know?
understand.
So, I'm way ahead of the West. Anyway, so it's 9 p.m. here in Southeast Asia. Anyway, the first reaction was, how could they react in half an hour? And in fact, it was between 25 minutes to 45 minutes. Essentially, in half an hour, the response was already online and in the air. Because, among other things, and this is something I confirmed with our friends in Tehran, Ayatollah Khamenei himself had already in detail organized the replacement of key commanders and even himself in 4 different layers. So this reveals a degree of minutia and extreme sophistication. And of course, because everybody expected this war to happen. Iran was ready not since the past few days. Iran has been ready since the 12-day war. They learned from their mistakes in the 12-day war. And the first lesson, objective lesson, is they had everything in place to start the counterpunch half an hour after the first attack, which happened to be, obviously, we are dealing with those apocalyptic genocidal fanatics in Tel Aviv. The only thing they know how to do properly is decapitation strikes. It's an obsession for them. And obviously, Neo Caligula, the megalomaniac psycho with a gigantic Narcissus complex, he went along. And obviously, even if he sold the fiction to global public opinion that the United States did not start this war, and this was repeated today by that clownish king of the push-ups, the secretary of the eternal forever wars, Peter whatever, he just said, we didn't start it. Of course, motherfucker, you did, alongside Netanyahu. So this was a joint operation that was discussed for weeks, and especially these past 2 weeks where there was a negotiation going on, and the negotiation was successful according to the Omani foreign minister. So we had a deal on the table. Everybody knows that. Even American mainstream media now, the past few days, they are reporting that the deal was on the table. And this meeting on Saturday morning in Tehran around 9:30 with Ayatollah Khamenei and several of the top military leadership and Security Council was to finalize the details and then send it back to essentially Arakshi in Oman for the next probably final meeting indirect with the Americans, and the deal was practically sealed. But obviously, when we are dealing with a bunch of fanatical cowards, and that's what they are, they use that, okay, the same syndrome like the killing of Sheikh Nasrallah and the top leadership of Hezbollah. We got all of them in the same room. Let's kill them. Well, we can say that this may be a serious mistake on the part of the Iranian leadership to do this, and especially in the open and inside Ayatollah Khamenei's office. That's another story. Let's deal with the facts. They instantly created a martyr with a global appeal. Ayatollah Khamenei now is joining a lineage of martyrs, starting with Soleimani at the beginning of the decade, continuing with Nasrallah, and now with himself, Khamenei. This triad of martyrs, they are not only martyrs for the whole Shiite world all over the globe. The Trump 2.0 administration now is at war with the whole of Shiism. Even strands of Shiism which are not I would say they don't adhere completely with the Vilayat Faqih system in Iran, the Khomeinist system in Iran. Example, Grand Ayatollah Sistani in Iraq, the top Shiite authority in Iraq. I followed Grand Ayatollah Sistani since the early 2000s, even before the attack on Iraq. I went to his office. Of course, for us foreigners, it's very difficult to talk to him, but I talked to his office in a side alley in Najaf with some of his top advisors immediately after the attack, the shock and awe in Iraq in 2003. And he is revered in the whole Shiite world as well, as much as Khamenei. Grand Ayatollah Sistani, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday he declared a fatwa in terms of honoring the memory of Grand Ayatollah Khamenei. And the fact that Qom in Iran and Najaf in Iraq, they have different interpretations, political interpretations of Islam, it doesn't mean that they were at odds. That's another story that I also followed for years. I even wrote columns comparing Najaf with Qom. Probably 10 people in the West would understand what I was talking about. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. Iranians know what I'm talking about. Iraqis know what I'm talking about. So now the whole Shiite world is in jihad mode. I would say that of nearly 2 billion Muslims all over the world, they are beyond angry with what happened, and there will be vengeance in several levels against let's call them for what they are, the Epstein Syndicate. This United States Trump 2.0 fanatics in Tel Aviv combo is, in fact, the short definition of this thing is Epstein Syndicate. Everybody's compromised, and the elites on both sides are part of it. And obviously, Epstein being one of those special assets of Israeli intelligence, he was the glue for this whole thing, which was not only American, was Atlanticist. There are several instances of Epstein syndicate activities across Europe. So this is it. They launched their war against Iran, and then we can go for zillions of reasons, quoting some of our friends like Professor Michael Hudson, who wrote a spectacular article in the past few hours about it. Basically, it's what he's been saying from the beginning, and this is I would say the essentially correct geoeconomic analysis for why this war needs to happen. There are many others. I would add, for instance, the connectivity corridor angle. This is something we can talk about later. But what Professor Michael Hudson is saying is an empire in a desperate state like the US, indebted to death with a debt they cannot pay, running out of time. The collapse of the dollar is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It's already collapsing all over the world. Here in Southeast Asia, the dollar plunges every day. It doesn't plunge in China because it's pegged, and it doesn't plunge in Hong Kong because it's pegged with the Hong Kong dollar. Everywhere else here in Asia, the dollar is plunging. So, and they need badly Lebensraum. And yes, I am quoting the Nazis. They need Lebensraum because the only way they can more or less compensate for their declining powers is to annex territory and control natural resources, steal them, plunder them, kill people for it, which is exactly what they're doing. And Iran, of course, Nima, as you know and our audience knows, is the big, big prize. It always was, it is, and will continue to be. If this will never happen, but if the United States and the Zionist axis and the Epstein Syndicate would ever control Iran, would ever take over, would ever get their regime changed, well, this means blowing up BRICS from the inside, blowing up the Shanghai Cooperation Organization from the inside, blowing up the axis of resistance from the inside, blowing up global South resistance against the empire from the inside. So, can you imagine? In terms of this fanatical mindset, this is beyond precious. So they had to go for it. Everything that is being said from Washington, from the Trump administration, by US mainstream media, by the industrial military complex, by think tanks, by academia, by all that bunch of cockroaches in the whole system, our friend Ray McGovern qualifies as MISIMAT, the industrial military, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex. Everything coming from them is bullshit because they cannot address the main issue. And if you read Professor Michael Hudson for 5 minutes, it's all there in his article, as concisely as possible. They need to destroy Iran because they need to control everything in terms of energy exports from the Middle East. And West Asia, of course, that's the correct terminology. And of course, this is going to be horrible news for China. So this is a war against China again. This is a war against the corridors of the Chinese nuke roads that go through Iran. This is a war against the north-south transportation corridor, Russia, Iran, India. That's the theme of my documentary that, I think we talked about it previously, which is already online on the site of Press TV. Please, all of you, if you are tired of war, if you're desperate, you're angry, go to the Press TV website, click on the documentary, The Golden Corridor, and you're going to see one of the key reasons of this war as well. The empire cannot allow three top BRICS to have a connectivity corridor across Eurasia, bypassing the Suez Canal, and of course, bypassing US control. So there are zillions of reasons for this war. And of course, from the point of view of those infrahumans in Tel Aviv and around it, of course, it's their dream, because then they have their free road towards Eretz Israel, Greater Israel, something that that stupid American ambassador Huckabee, he let the cat out of the bag. He was not supposed to say that, but he said it in the open. And now the whole planet now has confirmation coming from an American ambassador that what these bunch of infrahumans wants is Eretz Israel and control everything in West Asia. So take this as my very angry introduction, Nima. I could go on for a while. I am very, very angry for what's happening, because all of us, we knew this would happen. And all of us, now that we are right in the middle of it as independent analysts, we know why it happened. We know what we don't know, which is the auspicious aspect, is how it's going to develop. And all the surprises along the way that will derail completely this absolutely ghastly and demented project of destabilizing West Asia as a whole.
You've mentioned if they can achieve something in Iran, but the other side would be the reality, practically what is going on right now in the West Asia. The Americans are not defending Saudis, are not defending Bahrainis, because they're not capable of doing that. They're just, and their air defense system is not working anymore. They don't have it anymore. It's all depleted. And looking at the situation right now, because for such a long time, these Arab states have felt one way or another that the United States, the presence of the United States in their countries would guarantee, would support them, would help them to defend themselves against an imaginary, in my opinion, enemy. But right now, when they need something, the United States is not even capable of defending itself or Israel. All the United States is doing right now is defending Israel. And Saudis are just screaming, what is going on here? And how do you see the long consequence of what is going on right now?
Well, this is happening, Nima, because all these Arabs or Arabs, as they call it in the Beltway, they don't matter. They're vassals. We throw a few crumbs to them. We get their money. We install our military bases in their own sovereign territory. They cannot say anything about it. Gladly, they have us all across the Gulf. And when something really happens that would imply the United States of America actually defending its allies, it's right in front of us. They don't give a nothing. They don't care. The only thing that matters is, of course, the Epstein Syndicate. And these Arabs, come on, now you're on your own, suckers. Are you going to learn the lesson? No, they won't. The populations know the lesson. If you ask a Bahraini in Manama, if you ask a lot of people in the Emirates, even in bling bling Dubai, they know exactly what's going on. But obviously, when we talk about this beyond corrupt bunch of gangsters posing as the leadership of those petromonarchies, starting with MBZ in the Emirates. Well, Putin was on the phone with MBZ today. I'm dying. We are all dying to know what they really discussed. What came from the Russian Minister of Foreign Relations was a blah, blah, blah that doesn't mean anything. Diplomatic blah, blah, blah. They had to talk about serious stuff. And obviously, MBZ, who he may be a gangster, but he's not a fool. He's already certainly considering rearranging his security priorities. And that would mean very close Russian involvement, not with US anymore. MBS in Saudi Arabia is much worse, Nima, because MBS was plotting for weeks with the genocidal duo for an attack on Iran. This is already out in the open. It already leaked in the first hours, in fact, of after the decapitation. And obviously, you cannot trust MBS. First of all, because he's a coward. Second, another megalomaniac. That's why he gets along with Trump. Third, if he's left on his own, he's dead meat, because the CIA can, I would say, in a matter of 20 minutes, they can provoke a coup in Riyadh and install their man. The CIA man in Saudi Arabia is there, Prince Nayef. Everybody knows that. So, and he's just waiting for the right moment where the CIA is going to put him in power. So there's not much MBS he can do. And on top of it, all his money is in London and in New York. So obviously he has his hands tied. And that explains, for instance, why he's trying to hedge. And theoretically, they are a BRICS member, but they're not. They're sitting on the fence. They cannot be considered a full BRICS member, not even a BRICS partner. They're not going to the BRICS meetings. So, so only in theory, they are a BRICS member. And now they can see that they are left absolutely alone to, okay, fry yourself as an egg on the desert, idiot. This is how important you are for U.S. national security. So many of these petromonarchies will take a few lessons out of it. Because they are fragile and because their leaders are a mix of bunch of gangsters, opportunists, and basically creeps, they won't do much. But maybe one of them who has a slightly more power and slightly better international arrangements, and that I'm talking about the Emirates, there will be a reconsideration, especially because Dubai as a business proposition from now on is dead. The Dubai business model expired this weekend. Dubai was based on two things. We are the number one glitzy money laundering machine in the world. Okay, this might continue. But if you want to live in Dubai, why would you want to live in that absolutely stupid, glitzy, fake, bling bling paradise? Tax-free, sunshine all year round, and security. What security? There's no more security. It's over. It's gone. So Western expats who are obsessed with security, they will leave Dubai. There's no question. And there won't be any new ones replacing them. Forget it. The poor people from South Asia, from Bangladesh, from Nepal, from Pakistan, these are the people that I usually talk to when I go to Dubai. I love talking to the immigrants. I love to talking to Sudanese guys, you know. So these are the best sources of information, what really happens in the Emirates. Because obviously they cannot go anywhere else, and because they are supporting their families because of their jobs in the Emirates, they will continue. But that's about it. Dubai as a paradise for Western expats, this business model is over. And there was a particular, I would say, this was a mini stroke of genius by the Iranians. A lot of Iranians do the Dubai-Tehran shuttle, as you know. This is when you are in the middle of the flight, you see Iranian women taking off, and you know, putting on their Gucci's and their Balenciagas, you know, to show off when they land in Dubai. That's a different story. Dubai is a key node of the Trump family dodgy operations. Trump coins, investments, lots of dodgy money that goes to the board of peace, also known as the board of war, hotel investments. So obviously, it's an attack, a personal attack by Iran on the Trump family's finances. This is the beauty part of it all. So obviously he's fuming because his financial interests in Dubai are completely collapsing. But very, very important. Why the attack on so-called civilian installations in Dubai? Because they are not civilian anymore. Some of these places were housing American military personnel who were evacuated from the bases and were sent to hotels. So the hotels have to be bombed. And in the case of the Palm Jumeirah, which is a disgusting bling-bling so-called 7-star or whatever, it's a piece of shit. I know luxury hotels well. It's disgusting. It poses as a luxury hotel. They did not strike the Palm Jumeirah hotel. They struck a building adjacent to the hotel. Do you know why, Nima? Because it was a Mossad-run and installed call center, employing a lot of Indian workers, specialized in scams against Europeans in America. So this is a completely crazy story. But this is the real explanation of why not the hotel, but the building adjacent to the hotel was hit. So the Iranians had all this information. Of course, if you are in Tehran and you do the Tehran-Dubai shuttle, you know everything that happens in Dubai. And the leadership in Iran, the military leadership in Tehran, and the ruling classes in Tehran, they know everything that happens in Dubai, and many of them have money in Dubai. There's a lot of Iranian money in Dubai that can be used one way or another. The last figure we had, Nima, and this was a few years ago, $600 billion of Iranian money invested in Dubai in everything you can imagine, shell companies, underground, you name it. So, you know, this can be used, and can be used by, of course, people who in power in Tehran as well. So, but the velocity of how all these things is happening is, today I could not even keep up, and I'm sure the same with you, with what was going on minute after minute. So now we're entering an acute phase already. So let's say if this is day 3, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, okay, we are on day 3 of the war, and we are already entering the acute phase. From now on, all bets are off, because we have 2 timelines in competition, and only one of these timelines can survive. The American timeline is already blown up because they were counting on a very short war. It's over. Forget it. Because the initiative and the control and the people who are dictating the timeline, they are not in Washington. They are in Tehran. This is, I would say, the number one mega lesson of the war so far. And that's what stunned everybody in the global, all over the global south, but also in the global north. So they are dictating the timeline. And obviously, because they have this genius idea of the decentralized mosaic, which is a fascinating concept, meaning all of you commanders, regional, provincial, you have the initiative. It's up to you to decide. And you can decide at the spur of the moment. You don't have to pick up a phone and call Tehran for anything. And it's working like clockwork. Perfect, So, of course, how this is going to evolve, and do they have the necessary hardware to keep this absolutely insane volley of ballistic missiles and drones day after day? Only on the first day, there were 1,200 ballistic missiles and drones. So in this day 2 and day 3, maybe even if it's around 700, 800, it's already massive. How long can they keep that up? We still don't know. So that's one timeline. And of course, we are starting to see little by little the hypersonics having skin in the game. We had just, I would say, a starter. During this week, we're going to have many more instances. In parallel, we have, of course, I would say, the interceptor drama. They are, Americans and Israelis, they are running out of interceptors in record time, and there are no extra interceptors coming from the US to replace them. So, okay, let's imagine if this happens throughout this week. And next week, there are no more interceptors. Then we're going to have what? Iranian timeline 2.0 being applied with hypersonic missiles at the choice targets in Israel. And once again, in what was not destroyed already in all those military bases, CIA installations, CIA underground cells, you name it. And of course, the US Navy, which of course, like the cowards that they were, they retreated. They retreated 1,000 kilometers from where they were. They are scared shitless. So now they are way there in the Indian Ocean. They were in the Arabian Sea, not too far from the Sea of Oman. Now they are in the southern Indian Ocean. That's very, very far away. So I would say that this week, things will come to a crunch. Which timeline is going to prevail? Or if the Americans start to they lost their balance completely. Can you imagine, Nima, when the Pentagon looks at a war theater and they see that they are not running the narrative and the timeline, which is exactly what's happening now, not to mention their bases are being decimated all over. There are a lot of people in the Pentagon who are pissed to death with the whole thing because they did not gain that. And of course, the Iranians, because they gained everything before, via Ayatollah Khamenei, via the leadership of the IRGC, and that translates into Secretary of the Security Council, Ali Larijani, saying and repeating it, there is nothing to negotiate. Of course not. They were negotiating until Saturday morning. They were on the table. They had a deal. And then they were attacked. And then they killed the supreme leader. What the hell are you going to negotiate after that? So that's it. We are entering it's crunch time. It's the chalk of timelines. And this is going to be solved this week, because next week, depending on how the interceptor drama goes, and Israel is nearly depleted, then the IRGC plan to transform a great deal of Israel into a giant parking lot will be in effect.
Pepe, you mentioned that MBZ called Putin, and I would assume that he
Yes.
was begging for, because he has lost, his faith in the United States. That's why he's calling Vladimir Putin and somehow begging to do something, to ask Iran not to attack us. But it's not the same case in Bahrain, for example. The state somehow collapsed. You see the people are coming out, the people are happy. We haven't seen these sort of footages coming out. You remember during the 12-day war, we had the footages coming from Palestine, from Lebanon. People were happy with the attacks, Iranian attacks on Israel. You see from the people of Bahrain that happening. You see they're happy. They're somehow... They're trying to do their best to show their happiness. They're attacking.
Majority Shiites, Nima.
I think it's so much
heavily oppressed, and that's one of the, I would say, the charms is a little bit too much. That's one of the, let's say, poles of attraction of crossing the bridge from Saudi Arabia and going to Bahrain. And you go to Manama, it's relaxed. You can have fun. You can have drinks and all that. Saudis go to Bahrain all the time via the bridge because it's more relaxed and all that. Of course, it's ultra repressive. The Shiites are kept like this. But obviously, now that they see what Iran is doing, of course, and they have zero sympathy for the petromonarchists in Bahrain, in Manama. So this is great to see in Persian Gulf petromonarchy, but many other instances are outstanding. When I saw the crowds in Kashmir, and it's not majority Shiite, I would say there's in many parts of Kashmir is a mix of Shiites and Sunnis. They were in the streets. There were gigantic crowds in the streets, almost Yemen style, paying their respects to Ayatollah Khamenei, and of course, protesting the whole thing. Not to mention in Karachi. Karachi has an enormous Shiite population as well, downtrodden, kept, beat up all the time and all that. So you see this in many parts of the Muslim world, and not necessarily only in Shiite parts of the Muslim world. So what these cycles bought for themselves, and this is going to be a very, very long process, a new historical process, is the eternal anger of the whole of Shiism, plus the eternal anger of a great deal of the Muslim world as a whole. Not only the Arab world, but Islam all across the world, including Islam inside the US and Islam all across Europe. So in terms of a miscalculation, for instance, many of our friends are being too polite to describe it in terms of miscalculation as a blunder and all that. No, this is Operation Cosmic Stupidity, Cosmic Fury, Cosmic Stupid Fury, any way you want to call it, but it's beyond human comprehension. How, in geopolitical terms, you can start something like that, especially because you don't have a plan. I'm not even talking about long term. You don't have a plan for tomorrow. And that explains, Nima, among other things, why the cowardly Neo Caligula was contacting Italian diplomats on day one to go tackle. This is already public domain. It was the Italians, of course, not officially. It was, we were contacted by the White House. We passed the information to Tehran, and obviously they said no. They said what Larijani said today on the record. We're not, there's nothing to negotiate. So he was already looking for an off-ramp on day one. So all the bullshit that he's spewing for the past 2 days make absolutely no sense whatsoever. He's still looking for an off-ramp, and there are no off-ramps. Unless he unilaterally declares, okay, I won the war. That's it, bye-bye, which he won't do because everybody knows that he's losing the war that he co-launched with the cowardly genocidal psycho, by the way, who took his wing of Zion and fled like a rat to Berlin. I would say, Nima, you put these two together and you compare with Ayatollah Khamenei, who died as a martyr working in his residence, in his office. There's nothing else to add. It's all there. That's the graphic image for the start of this war.
Pepe, how do you find Europeans so far? Because we had
allow me to laugh a little bit. I'm sure our audience, everybody is pissed to death. We need a laugh. So now we're going to have the Franco-British chihuahuas sending the Charles de Gaulle pour faire une promenade. What a bunch of fucking idiots. You know, I would love to, everybody would love to see the Charles de Gaulle kissing underwater reefs somewhere in the Eastern Mediterranean or the Persian Gulf. Okay, no, the French are too cowardly. They won't do that. Or the Brits, the army of the Brits, they are not capable of conquering a wimpy burger. And they want to send their army to fight against real Iranians. Good luck. Bye-bye. It's a joke, Nima. It doesn't even qualify as a very bad joke. But I want to return to something very, very serious. I'm sure all of you, our audience, have seen the tweets of the toxic Medusa in Brussels supporting the Epstein syndicate war. I rest my case. No need to comment, right?
We had Stormers saying that they can use Ukrainians because these are drone experts and they can be used in, you know, it's so much. Do you think that they're going to be that stupid to join the war against Iran?
They can be that stupid, Nima. Yeah, yes, I think you took the words out of all of our collective mouths everywhere. Independent, analytical, critical thinking mouths all over the global south. Yes, they are stupid enough to do that. No question. And because how do they reason? They need to feel themselves important, and they need to prove to the world that they matter. So obviously, the brainwashing campaign already started in Western mainstream media and European mainstream media, that we are being attacked by the evil ayatollahs, the mullahs, or whatever. So we need to go there to defend our democracy. So this is the Franco-British reasoning, supported obviously by those idiots in Brussels. If you read what they are publishing on Twitter, X, all of them, that's it. They are preparing European public opinion for, let's say, we're going to help our Washington, Tel Aviv friends. And yes, of course, they are stupid enough to do it because this fits into their cosmic stupidity. They were we never lost money betting on their cosmic stupidity and blunder after blunder. After all, they are destroying life in Europe by themselves. So this would be just I would say, the coda.
Yeah. Pepe, we mentioned that Iran, in the mind of the Iranian strategists right now, is a long war. How do you see Israel sustaining that? How do you see the reaction? Because it comes to a moment that they don't have anything to fire back.
Exactly. And this is something that can happen next week already, Nima. Yes.
And the United States doesn't have that much to help them.
No.
And how they're going to manage, they are, whoever is thinking. I don't know what is the mindset on the part of those people who are fighting in Ukraine and right now fighting against Iran. But these are the same people that are fighting
Yes.
Russia and Iran, and they want to have some sort of balance. But it seems that they would bring all of their assets to Israel to defend Israel. That would be hugely influence the battlefield in Ukraine as well. How do you see the combination of the two?
Well, in fact, I'm glad that you mentioned the same people, because historically they are the same people. Those descendants of the Khazarians in Ukraine are the same people as the descendants of the Khazarians in Eastern Europe, who went to Palestine, stole Palestine, destroyed Palestine, and they say that Palestine was always ours by divine right, by their intolerant, pathetic God. So yes, they are the same people. And yes, we can see certainly within the next few days, assuming the war lasts extra few days or even weeks, we can see a Ukrainian Khazarian contingent arriving in Tel Aviv, and of course, drone technology imported from Ukraine. There's no question. It was already offered directly by the criminal organization in Kiev. So it would also make historical sense, because after all, it's the same thing. And the Eretz Israel, Greater Israel, completely demented dream, which is now out in the open, even for people who never thought about it, people who don't follow geopolitics historically, and the great Khazarian dream, which is to restore the Khazars in Eastern Europe, near the Dnieper, east of the Caspian, northeast of the Black Sea, etc., like it was in the 10th century. They are the same people. Of course. It's no wonder that Zelensky is at home in Tel Aviv. Oh, it's obvious. And it's no wonder that this is the same war. These are two declinations of the same war, and which puts, by the way, Russia in a terrible position. Terrible position. Because there are any number of 1.2 million to 1.5 million to even 2 million Russians living in Israel with double passports. So from the point of view of defending the citizens of the motherland, this for Russia is an absolute disaster. How can Russia, which is fighting remnants of Nazi fascism in Ukraine, defend a bunch of essentially Nazi fascists in Israel? It does not make sense any way you look at it. But the imperatives of carrying a Russian passport, put Russia into this unsustainable position, which brings us to how difficult it is to discuss the power of the Zionist lobby in Moscow. This is a taboo subject, especially for us foreigners. We have to, it's very difficult to navigate. You never get straight answers from anybody. People, in fact, politely decline to talk about it, but it's a fact. And we wonder how Putin and the Security Council in Moscow are going to deal with that, considering that their strategic partner now is being directly attacked by the Epstein Syndicate. So Russia has a moral, not only diplomatic and military, but a moral imperative to defend Iran. They are, for the moment, at I would say, extremely discreet levels. The help is there, not as much as it's needed at the moment. And also considering that the Iranians apparently, and this won't be confirmed anywhere, it won't be confirmed in Tehran, and it won't be confirmed in Moscow, the Iranians are not asking Russia directly for help now. as they did not ask even before the start of this war. But of course, because there is a strategic partnership, they discuss at the highest level. So we can be sure that the MOD in Moscow and there's a new Minister of Defense in Iran, Nima, was appointed today. I'm sure he'll pick up the phone and call Moscow and discuss, nitty-gritty matters, details, if they need it. And if they need it, Russia will provide it very discreetly. China has already provided. So in terms of intel, in terms of satellite intelligence, in terms of using the Baidu system, bypassing GPS, you name it. So, which brings us back to the major big picture theme of everything. Russia and China together simply cannot allow Iran to be defeated. Period. How they're going to do it, it's another box of worms. It's another Pandora's box. But they know, the leadership in Moscow and Beijing know they cannot allow that to happen. So obviously they are little by little coordinating on the go how the support to Iran is going to go on, depending on what evolves in the battlefield. And there's an extra component, Anima, very, very important, which is not only the United States, as Foreign Minister Lavrov has been saying for the past 4 years, for that matter, non-agreement capable. They are non-diplomacy negotiating capable. And now this is clear not only to Iran, but also to Russia, which means that this kabuki going on a peace deal of Ukraine, for all practical purposes, is also dead. It is a kabuki, and it's seen by the leadership in Moscow as a kabuki. So now we are in the brutal reality. To quote Hobbes, nasty, brutish, but not short, long. I'm paraphrasing Hobbes now. It's very, very clear for Tehran and for Moscow. The problem for Tehran is that they have to deal it on a hot basis 24/7 as we speak. And Russia still have their leeway because they know that the Americans, because they are under Trump 2.0 on a roll, I'm quoting, in their own minds, because they think that they can basically attack anybody, basically kill anybody, basically destroy. Well, they already destroyed the system of international relations, and they already destroyed any remnant of international law. So now it's total chaos, total anarchy, and it's the law of the mega jungle. And no wonder they are on a roll, because these people are extremely insecure. They are giants with clay feet, and especially they are led by an extremely insecure megalomaniac psycho with the mind of a 2, 3, or 4-year-old maximum. So this is quite clear for Moscow, because I was in Moscow last week doing a series of interviews, which, please, all of you, our audience, you can find these interviews everywhere on YouTube.
Amazing interviews you did.
Yes. We did a series of interviews, absolutely extraordinary. Thanks to this new discussion club in Moscow. We talked to the former Prime Minister of Ukraine from 2010 to 2014, Mr. Azarov. And it was George Galloway and myself. At the end, we were both looking at each other, and we said, wow, this is... you could feel your skin moving. It was harrowing. It was very personal. And this is from a top player for 4 years at the top level of the Ukrainian government before Maidan. So this kind of stuff, please, all of you, take a look, reflect on what these extraordinary people were telling us only a few days ago in Moscow. And when you hear some other SBU, a former SBU top-level official, or the number 2 of the Duma, which has become a great fan, Mr. Babakov, you can see that the Russians now, they have a pretty clear idea of who they are dealing with. And they know that it's going to be very hard to manage an empire totally out of control. And obviously, they are learning their lesson from the Iranians, because the Iranians are trying to manage an empire out of control in the middle of a war. And for the moment, they are succeeding. And that's why the whole planet, global North and global South, is stunned. 47 years of sanctions, non-stop. Maximum pressure for any bloody regime in the White House. Deceit, lies after lies after lies, fake news after fake news, an assassination drive in the middle of a negotiation. And Iran is still there, standing up, strong and resisting. So this is a lesson for the whole global South. All of you across the global South, pay attention. The other day, I think it was yesterday, I saw something that moved me to tears practically. I saw a photo of a young Ayatollah Khamenei, in fact, a young Ali Khamenei, side by side with Thomas Sankara. Wow. So this is it. This is it. This is the spirit of the global South. This is the spirit of decolonization. This is the spirit of resistance. And today, Iran, under siege and under fire, incarnates this spirit of resistance, and with this lineage that I was mentioning in the beginning. General Soleimani, Sheikh Nasrallah, Ayatollah Khamenei. So this triad, future historians in the 21st century, not from the global North, not from the Anglo-American oligarchy, future independent historians in the next century, when they look to our young 20th century, they will identify these three as, yes, these guys, they were fighting for the liberation of the global South.
Yeah. Pepe, thank you so much for being with us today. Our brother Larry is here. You may want to
don't let him go. Don't let him go.
Brother, what a pleasure to see. I wish we were all together, but yes, we are the fragmented bunch, right?
Exactly.
I was looking forward to hearing. I guess I'm about to go back and watch. I was with the judge up until about 20 minutes ago, so it was. But I encourage people.
Larry,
I encourage people go watch your documentary. I've loaded it up at sonar21.com.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Nima. And yes, all of you.
Thank you,
If you want to escape war, watch the documentary about what Russia, Iran, and India are trying to do. And it's one of the reasons for this war against Iran now.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Nima. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I show. Oh, no shirt today, huh? Okay. God Almighty!
I was so much overwhelmed with the news.
I know. Yeah, I showed up and I saw online. You said, "Oh, 9 a.m." I said, "Well, mine says 10 a.m." So now I realize Pepe could only do 9 to 10. All right, I got it.
Yeah. Larry, welcome back, and let me start with the news, with the breaking news about 3 fighter jets, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 fighter jets being shot down, and the United States is saying that it was shot down by the air defense of Kuwait, but they were somehow, the Iranian drones are flying over Kuwait without having that much of problem, and I was wondering how much capable they are in shooting down fighter jets and not being capable of hitting the Iranian drones.
Yeah, look, this we're witnessing something pretty remarkable. That since you and I talked on Saturday, it's even Iran has effectively destroyed the U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf in terms of bases that where troops and planes and other material can sit safely. They can't sit safely. So there's no safe space for U.S. military forces in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, in Jordan, in Syria, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. Oh, and Bahrain in particular is a real problem for the United States. So the idea that the friendly fire brought down an F-15, it's just not credible. Unless you're saying that the entire friend and foe, they have systems on board the planes that identify them as friend or foe. Now, if we're saying that this one got turned off and then they got lucky and took it out, but from what I've seen is Iran has effectively destroyed most, if not all, of the air defense systems that were deployed to bases like Prince Sultan, Al Udeid in Qatar, and particularly in Bahrain. So, this is, I think this partly accounts for why Donald Trump reached out to, through the State Department to Italy. Hey, call up the Iranians and see if they'll agree to a ceasefire. We'll get the negotiations back underway. Do you think the United States would be seeking a ceasefire if they were winning? If they were crushing Iran? Oh, hell no. If you're in a championship football game and you're up by 4 touchdowns, you're not going to go to the other side. Hey, could we have a timeout and let's just maybe agree to a draw? Come on, it's just ridiculous. So, what Iran has accomplished is it's driven the United States out of the Persian Gulf, and it is now set in motion a chain of diplomatic, military, and most importantly, economic dynamics that are going to crush the world's economy, put a lot of money in the pockets of the Russians. Oil's now up at $83 a barrel. I think it'll probably go up to 150 or well over 100. And Trump's hopes of a economic recovery in the United States, poof, gone. And this is going to worsen the economies in Europe. So what a stupid thing that Trump did. They got forced into it by the Israelis. And the only, one of the silver linings here is Israel's going to take such a beating out of this that its very survival will be in question, I believe.
Larry, how about Saudi Arabia? We've seen that Bernie Sanders tweeted that Saudi Arabia, together with Israel, did that. Somehow put pressure or convince Donald Trump that they can do something in Iran.
Hey, that group of degenerates, because that's what these Saudi princes are. They're degenerates. They pretend to be these holy, adherents to Islam, and then they go whoring in London and drinking. The good Muslims not supposed to drink alcohol. Man, these guys are buying $2,000 bottles of wine. I've seen it personally. 20 years ago. But when I traveled with my friend Pat Lang, and Pat was consulting with one of these, let's call him a Saudi prince, and we met him in London, and so much for shunning alcohol.
Yeah. Here is, Larry, what Pete Hegseth said about the current situation with the war in Iran.
And political left screaming endless wars. Stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise. no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America.
Yeah.
You're going to make me say some obscenities. Fuck that motherfucker. I mean, honest to God, he's such an ignorant little prick. And to say something stupid like that, they are now mired in a war. And Donald Trump lied to the American people in 2024. I mean, the words are quite clear. I got them right here. His signature phrase was, "I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars." Well, he just started a war. He said he insisted that he was going to bring stability to the world. Do you think this is making the world more stable? The Strait of Hormuz is now closed. 21% of the world's oil is not getting delivered Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So we're now 3 days, and we'll be into day 4 that the strait is closed. The price of oil has already gone up in the United States. I saw out in Oregon, it's gone up $1, $1 a gallon in just 1 day. And then the full impact of the shortages haven't hit here. The United States is launching an air war, yet, and I'm basing this on Alistair Crook, but I think Alistair knows what he's talking about. He says that they've actually had no credible reports of Israeli or U.S. aircraft flying over Iranian territory yet. They've used standoff munitions, the AGMs, the air-guided air-to-ground missile, the JASSM, and cruise missiles. So they don't have to actually physically fly in there. However, that said, at least it looks like 3 F-15s have been shot down. And the losses for the United States, they're going to continue to pile up. First day they were saying, "Oh, no casualties." Well, we got 4. So 1 a day. The total number of deaths that U.S. soldiers incurred in Iraq back in 2003 through 2014, I believe, was the final date. That was fewer than 4,000. Trump very well could get that number here in 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what they do. But I think the United States is going to have tremendous difficulty sustaining operations. They really did expect the regime in the government of Iran to collapse and for it to be replaced, because they've lied to themselves that there is strong. They've convinced themselves that 80% of the Iranians want to get rid of the Islamic Republic. Not the case, just the opposite.
Yeah, they have moved their fighter jets to Cyprus. It seems that they're not. How much do we know about the fighter jets in Jordan? Because Jordan was getting hit by Iranian missiles. I think that would be so dangerous for them to stay in Jordan.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I'm not privy to, any classified information about the deployment of U.S. forces. I'm going off on what's been available in public. But what's noteworthy about what Iran has accomplished, this is now the start of day 3. So we're not. It seems like a week, but it's not. Compare what happened when the June 13th surprise attack by Israel. Iran was caught completely unaware. They got suckered into believing that the negotiations were going to go forward and they had nothing to worry about. In fact, it was just a cynical ploy by the United States working with Israel. It killed a lot of senior leadership. Didn't get Khamenei or Pezeshkian, and it took it took about 12 hours before Iran basically, like a boxing match, it got knocked to the canvas, not knocked out, but it was down. But finally, after 12 hours, stood up and began firing back at Israel, and avoided at the time, did not attack any of the U.S. bases. They didn't want to get embroiled in an attack with the United States. This time, this attack at 8:30 on Saturday morning, within an hour, Iran was firing back, both at Israel and at the U.S. military presence. And in less than 36 hours, have effectively destroyed the bases that, so the U.S. military operations are not going on normally at those bases like they were 2 weeks ago, especially in Bahrain. I think that is probably the most significant damage, because it looks like it's destroyed the port that hosted the Fifth Fleet of the U.S. Navy, as well as the support buildings, etc. Excuse me. And Bahrain, unlike Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain is 80% Shia. So there is the anger and outrage that has erupted in Bahrain over the murder of the Ayatollah Khamenei is significant and substantial. So this is, could anybody have predicted that? They said that within 48 hours, Iran would have effectively defeated, forced the United States to retreat from bases that it has been using for more than 30 years throughout the Gulf. But that's what's happened.
What's astonishing to me, Larry, that they feel, the Trump administration somehow feel that everything is in their hand. They can decide about that. It's going to be a short war, a long war. The destiny is in their hands. These are so much delusional. Nobody seems to understand what they're talking about.
Right. Well, look at the what happened over the weekend. I mean, less than 24 hours into this, the United States is reaching out. It may have been 36 hours, but somewhere between Saturday night, East Coast time, and Sunday morning, the United States reached out to Italy and said, hey, go talk, see if the Iranians, tell them we'd like to do a ceasefire and get negotiations back underway about the nuclear program. And the Iranians basically said, oh, yes, we have a message for Donald Trump. Tell him to fuck off. They said, no, we have nothing to talk to the United States about. So now here's the United States. They're looking at the Strait of Hormuz closed, the oil market in shambles. In fact, just before I checked the stock market before coming on air, the Dow Jones was down 500. Now it's only down 90. They're trying to save it, but it's at 48,000. Remember a couple of weeks ago when the Pam Bondi was testifying, stonewalling about the Epstein case? Oh, the stock market's at 50,000. Yeah, not for long. So this is going to jack up oil prices in the United States. It's going to increase inflation, which was already a problem. And it's going to create global economic problems, at least for some countries. Japan in particular is quite vulnerable on this. I could see the Iranians allowing oil and Chinese tankers to come out and go to China. I can see that. But you've now had attacks on the Iranian oil field. One pipeline has been hit and is on fire. And Iran in turn is hitting Aramco in Saudi Arabia. So it's not just a matter of oil available to transit out of the Persian Gulf. The actual oil fields are going to be hit and damaged. And so they won't be putting out the amount of oil that they were previously. So, yeah, the Trump administration, you got to step back and say, why were they seeking a ceasefire already? Because they actually understand how serious the damage is going to be inflicted on them by Iran, both economically as well as militarily, and what it augurs for Israel. Israel is, I would not be surprised to see that they'll be out of air defense missiles by next Monday, a week from today.
I think the big question is that what would happen to Israel, and we see the Iranian attack on these Arab states. They have destroyed the bases, as you've mentioned, and the radars that the THAAD system, it seems that is connected to these radars to get signals and to defend Israel. It seems that they somehow destroyed all those radars that they cannot receive the signals. This is hugely influential for the air defense system of Israel.
Yeah. That was they had the one system in Qatar at Al Udeid, and the other in Bahrain, and they were integrated, and it was those radar systems provided. At Al Udeid, there's another facility called the Combined Air Operations Center. The military acronym is CAOC, CAOC, and the CAOC monitored all flights in the region and was there primarily to try to deconflict, like when Russia and the United States were flying missions in Syria a year ago, 2 years ago. The CAOC, one of its jobs was to coordinate with the Russians to make sure we didn't fly into each other. Now, they may be effectively blind. So this is, this is really significant, and that shows Iran thought this through. They're not just punching blindly. They are attacking methodically. The other thing that they've done is, I know that the military, the guys that are sitting in what they call the crisis action teams at the Pentagon and at MacDill Air Force Base, it's CENTCOM headquarters. They were like in the first 24 hours going, yeah, man, we are kicking butt. We're destroying all these launchers. Well, now video has emerged, and it looks like most of what they're destroying are decoys that have been put out there deliberately to attract U.S. firepower, but it's, these are not critical systems. And meanwhile, Iran continues to launch missile wave after missile wave after missile wave. They've now done at least 9 or 10 different waves, and that's in 2.5 days. So this is significant.
Larry, what is happening in Iran, as I follow the Persian media, the internal media of Iran, it seems that after the initial hours that they assassinated the supreme leader and the commanders, they're somehow running into a situation that they had with Yemen. It seems that the intelligence that is coming out or they're getting from Iran or they have is not that accurate. They don't know where to bomb. That's why you see more civilians are getting killed. They're attacking, police stations, and you can find them on the map to attack them. And nothing more than that. No strategic, attack on, some headquarters, some of that. But how do you see the whole operation in Iran? It seems to me that it's running in the same direction that it was during the war against Yemen.
Well, again, since their primary method of attack from the West is the Tomahawk cruise missile and the AGM, the JASSM, they're gonna run out of those. They're going to deplete that stockpile, and the initial intent was to bring about a regime change. Instead, what they've done is they've fortified support for the regime, and instead of Iranians going into the street to say, let's get rid of the mullahs, it's just the opposite. It's inspired greater patriotism on the part of the Iranian people. So there's throughout history, and let's go back to World War II. That was the belief in the 8th Air Force. It was the Army Air Corps back then. Air Force had not been created as a separate service. That didn't come until after World War II. but generals like Curtis LeMay and others, they genuinely believed that they could win the war. They could defeat Nazi Germany by just dropping bombs. Well, that turned out not to be true. Then the same in Korea, the same in Vietnam, which, we ended up getting a bunch of pilots as prisoners of war, including John McCain was one. But again, so air power can play an important role in supporting a ground offensive. But air power in and of itself is not going to bring about regime change, particularly in a place like Iran, because Iran's too damn big. It's vast. And can it kill people and cause heartache and cause damage? Oh, absolutely. But it doesn't create something unrecoverable, short of using nukes. I mean, and the nuclear weapon, again, is you'd have to use a number of them to, let's say, alter the climate and cause but it's still a localized effect. And they're going to run into the reality of, is the more they continue to do this, it's wear and tear on these planes. And so then they're going to have to be down for maintenance. The F-35A, which is the basically land-based F-35, is notorious for being what they call a hangar queen. There's always got something wrong with it that you can't put the full complement. 24 planes in a squadron. Sometimes the squadron is not operating at 100%. It could be down as 60%, 50%. So we're in the early stages of the euphoria. Oh, we're bombing the hell out of them. But by next Monday, it's going to be more frustrating, because what are we going to attack? And per Alistair Crook, and Alistair's got great sources and knows what he's talking about. They've not dared to breach, fly over Iranian territory yet. And that's because the Iranian air defense actually is still intact. It's just not effective against the Tomahawks.
Yeah. By going to Cyprus, I think the operation for the Air Force of the United States would be much difficult, to come all along to Iran and get back, and they'll have to refuel. And how do you see that?
Well, just offhand, do you know I don't know what the distance is. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
What is the distance from Cyprus?
It's South Cyprus. It's a South Cyprus.
Yeah. But Cyprus to the western border, of Iran. And the answer is, let's see. Okay, it's 1,000 to 1,200 miles, or 1,600 to 1,900 kilometers. So just do the math. An F-35 can fly 600 miles and then it has to be refueled. So it's going to have to be refueled twice before it could even get to the border of Iran. And that's just getting to the border. And now if it tries to fly into Iran, from the western border into Tehran is like 270 miles. The point is, these planes don't have the range to be able to fly there. They've got to use standoff weapons, and even then, it adds to the time. I'll be surprised to see if anything remains operating in Jordan and in Prince Sultan. I think they've been evacuated. We've seen in Erbil, Iraq, those bases have come under attack. So, I think that is the biggest surprise for the U.S. military, that they didn't think that Iran would be able to hit them so fast and in such a comprehensive manner as has taken place.
Do you see Iran escalating the attacks on Cyprus? Because we've seen.
Yeah, they might. They might. They have missiles that can reach there. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, if these attacks continue on Iran, they'll take them out. The same with what's going to, we'll see new targeting of the airfields in Israel. That's got to really, I think, be Iran's next objective. Take out the Air Force, and Iran they do have the missile capability to do that. So I think that'll probably be the next focus of their plan.
So where would be the next station for the fighter jets? Because they have to move them from Cyprus. If Iran starts attacking Cyprus, they have to move these fighter jets to some other places.
Yeah, to Italy. They could go to Italy. They could conceivably, I don't know if they'd want to try to do Egypt. Egypt's been a bit of a prostitute, a Western prostitute in all of this. And Egypt would still be in range of Iranian missiles. So Italy would probably be the next spot. They could use Turkey, except Turkey has said that, that they've rejected it. They've criticized the West harshly for attacking Iran. I don't think Erdogan wants to get embroiled in this conflict.
Yeah, I really believe that he may, yesterday Professor Marandi said that they let the United States to use their airspace to do some intelligence gathering, but they're not going to go that far to let the United States, put fighter jets in Turkey. That's a huge escalation if they do that. And I don't see the government in Turkey going that far.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. How, Larry, you've mentioned the situation with the Arab states. We know that in Bahrain, the situation is so fragile. Mm-hmm. People are happy with the bombing, Iranian bombing, facilities in Bahrain. And it seems that we are going to see, before you coming up, I thought you saw that I was talking with Pepe Escobar. He said that MBZ was on phone today with Putin. It seems that we don't know what was happening, what he was asking for.
Who was on the phone with Putin?
MBZ, the head of UAE.
Oh, okay.
MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed. They call it Mohammed bin Zayed, MBZ.
Okay.
Yeah. Or MBZ, as you. Yeah. He was on phone with Vladimir Putin talking about. Nobody knows what was the subjects of what was the main topic, but it seems that he's begging somehow.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm sure he's trying to say, hey, you got to call, rein in Iran, get Iran to stop. And I'm sure Putin will probably say, not my problem. I didn't start this. You started this to the Emiratis. The deception, the lies that were told to Iran to lull them into a false sense of security that they could think that there was some hope that negotiations were moving forward. I mean, God, this is so evil to lie like that, because when you have a chance, if the United States was sincere in its desire to ensure that Iran didn't get a nuclear weapon, I mean, that was always his public stance, then there was definitely a path forward. But we now know that was not the issue, and I've said that all along. The whole issue of the nuke is a bit of a red herring. I mean, that's what Israel focuses on. They wanted to just get rid of the Islamic Republic. And, the West loves to lie. The United States loves to lie about, oh, Iran is this evil, vicious, terrorist nation. They're the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. It's absolutely, as we've discussed before, a lie, a monstrous lie. Iran is not the major sponsor of terrorism. If anything, it's Israel and the United States. And it is sort of convenient that although the the most active terrorist groups in the world are these Sunni extremists, the ISIS, Al-Qaeda's, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, al-Nusra, Taliban. Notice they never really attack any Israeli targets, any Jewish targets. And in fact, there's an established history of both Mossad funding terrorist groups or groups that are labeled as terrorists, such as Hamas. That's the real irony, because Hamas, in terms of actual attacks, is very, very, very low. It's not one of the most active groups in the world at all by any stretch. So the United States has facilitated this lie to maintain that Iran under the mullahs is intent upon destabilizing the region, when in fact it's been the United States. It wasn't Iran that attacked Iraq. It wasn't Iran that attacked Afghanistan. It wasn't Iran that attacked Syria. So instead of being a force for chaos, Iran has tried to be a stabilizing force, and it's been the United States and Israel that have been the destabilizers. So now all this is coming to a head because, a year ago, it looked like Turkey and Israel were cooperating, certainly cooperated more than a year ago in getting rid of Bashar al-Assad. Now you've got Israeli officials openly citing Turkey as the next target. Once we get rid of Iran, then Turkey's on the chopping block. And I think that the Turks aren't fools. I think they're listening to that. They're paying attention. So this I conclude by saying, we have unleashed a monster that I think this war is going to escalate, not diminish.
Larry, the martyrdom of the supreme leader of Iran has the opposite effect that the United States, they thought that they could bring down all, the leadership in Iran by killing the supreme leader of Iran, which was totally the opposite way, not only in Iran, but outside of Iran.
Correct.
Iran didn't ask, as far as I know, Iran didn't ask Yemenis to come in, didn't ask Iraqis to come in, people in Pakistan, and Hezbollah has joined the conflict. These are not upon the somehow Iran is asking them to do this. They're joining by themselves because they're seeing what has happened. They see the outcome of what is the United States is doing in Iran.
Well, look, I think Iran's number one military objective right now needs to be the destruction of the Israeli air bases. So once you destroy those air bases and the Israeli Air Force cannot get off the ground, then Israel is in big trouble. Because that's, look at all the death and destruction they've been causing in southern Lebanon because of airstrikes. Okay, destroy their ability to launch airstrikes. And I think, again, if I was advising the Iranian military, that's where I'd start targeting right away. And not just with one or two. I mean, make it flood the zone, bring in every drone and every old missile, force them to drain their air defense system, what's left, and then pummel them with your hypersonics and take out all the hangars, the sheltered hangars for the F-35s, destroy the fuel source, crater the runway. So, in short order, without that, Israel's not able to project any kind of military force. It'd be extremely limited.
Yeah. Here is what Donald Trump just moments ago said, that we are surprised by Iran's attack on Arab countries. Larry, how can we be surprised by that? Because we were talking about it many times, and Iran said, obviously, if you attack us, all of these targets American bases would be attacked by Iranian.
yeah.
They said it over and over, but the president of the United States, I'm surprised by that.
Well, and look, the U.S. and the Saudis and the Qataris and Emirati, they're trying to portray this as Iran attacking those countries. Iran's attacks have been on the U.S. military facilities in those countries, and the fact that those countries have basically been Western whores, prostitutes. They get paid the money and they perform the acts that the West requires. And Iran's, saying, okay, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Business as usual at these military bases ain't happening now.
It seems that Netanyahu is not in Israel because Iran has attacked both one of the Air Force headquarters and Netanyahu's house. And I don't know, so far we haven't heard from him, but it seems that he's in Germany. He's not in Israel.
Hey, he's a coward. And, maybe just convenient to be in Germany at this time. But like I said, Iran, but because it uses mobile launchers, it is almost impossible for the United States to locate and destroy a mobile launcher before it can launch a missile. Now, I do know that the U.S. was pretty, thrilled on Saturday and going into Sunday with, quote, the number of launchers that had been destroyed. And now that I've seen some of the video, it looks like most of those were decoys. They put them out so that the United States could see them, locate them, and then use up an air to ground missile, for example. And now this is where it gets interesting. Because China has cut off the supply of rare earth minerals, and because those rare earth minerals are critical components in building some of these weapon systems, the U.S. ability, it's going to use up its inventory, and it's not going to be able to replace it anytime soon. So this is the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for the United States. And all this confident nonsense that that idiot Pete Hegseth was spewing will be exposed as, he's a fool. They didn't sit down and calculate this properly. They believed their own lies. Yeah.
Larry, yesterday I talked with Professor Ted Postal. He sent me this.
I watched it.
Yeah. He has mentioned who's using the Strait of Hormuz and how dependent is the economy of the United States on these countries: Japan, South Korea, Australia, Philippines,
right.
China. And these are hugely impacted by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And how do you see the United States, Donald Trump, convincing the people in the United States that he can manage that? Because it seems, as Professor Ted Postal said, that there is nothing to do if Iran decides to keep it closed.
Yeah, well, the United States could try to open it, but if it brings in it, again, all they can use is air power. If they try to use naval power, try to bring in, aircraft carriers and destroyers to force it open, they're going to get sunk. And then you got a real problem for the United States. And there are limits to air power. And Iran has lots of options. It effectively closed the strait initially just by saying it's closed. And insurance rates went up immediately. Ships stopped. And then a few started, I guess, yesterday, trying to ease into, see if they could get through. And then Iran hit them with the anti-ship missiles and set, it was either 3 or 4, and set them on fire. So now if they try to open it, Iran could still put mines, mine the strait. So it would be impossible. Because once it's mined, you're going to have to bring in a minesweeper. Well, a minesweeper is going to get targeted and blown out of the water by Iran, because Iran's got the missiles to do it. And we're not even talking about, did Iran deploy any ships any both ships and boats that it has, they could go out and attack tankers. Yeah, so this is if I'm Iran, this is one of my negotiating chips. The West comes and say, okay, stop. We got to stop this. And even if China and Russia come to Iran and say, okay, we need to open the strait, you say, fine. I want all sanctions lifted against Iran. That's where we start. And I want the Israelis out of Gaza. They've got to withdraw. And until that happens, strait's closed. And at some point, the economic pain from that is going to be so significant that there will be pressure on Israel. And there's certainly going to be pressure on the United States and then European to maybe stop the sanctions. This is, I think Iran right now recognizes it's in an existential event. It has to win this, not just fight it to a draw. It's got to win, and it can win it because it can exhaust the ability. The United States does not have unlimited weapons to be able to sustain an attack for 6 months. Can't do it. Iran can. And that's what the West is under. That's what people like Hegseth and others are failing to appreciate and take into account.
Here is what Professor Ted Postel showed us yesterday, the capabilities of the United States in producing, interceptors, the Patriot 50 Patriot interceptors per month, which would be 4 million each. And the THAAD, it's going to be 8 THAAD interceptors per month. And it's hugely it's more expensive even than the Patriot. And when it comes to the SM-3 block, it goes 1 per month. And
this is, and I think Ted's being a little overly optimistic because the number I've seen in the past in terms of Patriot missiles, that Lockheed Martin was producing 700, now maybe 800. Well, that's far fewer than 50 a month. Or is that right? No, that's right. Okay. Yeah, that's 600, isn't it? Yeah. So, 600, 600 to 800. And this is what people need to understand with these missiles. And people that listen to me on other podcasts get tired of hearing me say this. But for every inbound missile from Iran, the Patriots got to fire at least 2 and sometimes 3 or 4. So I think in the first day, Iran fired like 114 missiles. Do the math. If you fire 2 Patriots for every one of those missiles, that's 228 Patriot missiles. That's almost 40% of the annual production in one day. And so multiply it. And we've seen this go on. One of the reasons the United States is running short is what has happened in Ukraine, because there the Russians as well, with drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, have over the course of 4 years forced the United States, who's been supplying Ukraine, to use up an enormous amount of what was once in its inventory. So now they're not sitting upon thousands of Patriot missiles. They could actually be down into the hundreds now. They could literally, within the course of, say, 2 or 3 weeks, deplete the U.S. inventory. And then at that point, you're back to, trying to produce 50 a month.
So if they run out of, interceptors, what would be the strategy? Just attack on Iran? Because that would hugely put Israel in a vulnerable situation, and they're going to get hit by any single Iranian missile in whatever location they want to hit Israel.
Yeah, I mean, the United States has, reportedly flew a B-2 mission that was supposed to bomb, quote, ballistic, one of the underground cities. And again, I'm not sure that is true. That's the story they're telling. Iran certainly hasn't reacted to it. But even if they get to the place where they start flying more, they try to do one of those a week or one every 2 or 3 days, at some point, Iran, with the help of the Chinese and Russians, is going to be able to target it and bring them down. And so the attempt to suppress Iranian air defense systems, I think, has not been a success. Those air defense systems were not set up to deal with the Tomahawk, but is the fixed wing aircraft apparently so. So, but again, this is not going to end in 12 days. When last June 25th, when Iran agreed to stop hitting Israel with missiles and basically put an end to the fighting, I'm sure the Ayatollah Khamenei signed off on that. Said, yes, well, we'll do this. I'm pretty sure that there were members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They're saying, hell no, we're not going to stop. What are we stopping? We're doing okay. They're not going to stop this time. They will not stop until there's going to be a political settlement that at a minimum will bring an end to the Western sanctions on Iran. Otherwise, Iran will keep pummeling the West, and there's little the West can do about it, because as long as Russia and China are standing behind Iran, it's not out there on its own.
Yeah, I think many of us don't understand how populated these areas like Tel Aviv, Jerusalem are, and how vulnerable are they against, considering the dealing with Iranian missiles.
Yeah.
And the missile should be so much accurate to hit the target, and so far we've seen that.
Well, let me stop you there. Ask you a quick question. Drawing upon your expertise as an Iranian, what's the population of Tehran?
It's more than 12 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the population of all of Israel?
Yeah.
About 7 million now.
Yeah.
So right there. I mean, it makes the point that it illustrates the point that you're making, because Israel, when Iran is targeting Israel, it doesn't have to have 200 targets. Haifa, Tel Aviv, and the Negev, basically 3 areas within Israel. Take out the ports in Haifa and Tel Aviv, take out the oil refineries, cripple the economy completely, destroy the airfield at Ben Gurion, destroy the airfields that are down south that are strictly military, take those out, and then begin destroying the factories, the economic backbone of Israel, because it is a confined area. It's not a huge area. Whereas Iran, good God. Once people realize, it's 4 times the size of Iraq. It's an enormous space, and the United States does not have the ability, nor Israel the ability, to go everywhere and bomb everywhere in Iran. And Iran, though, does have missiles that can, they can travel in excess of 2,000 miles, 2,500 miles. This, the United States is not going to be able to do anything to Iran that will force them to surrender. In fact, the continued attacks are going to enrage the Iranians to the point that they will not stop fighting until the West is forced to make concessions. That's where this is headed, I think.
Yeah. And the other point, Larry, is the people who are living in Tehran is 12 million. Somehow it gets to 15, 16 during the day, but they can spread out all over the country because their families, they are living in other provinces.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who are in Tehran, but they have the family in the south, they have in the north, in the east, and west, and they can spread out all over the country, which is not the case for Israelis.
Yeah. No, they don't. They got no place to run. And I think, this is a critical moment in the history of Israel, history of Iran, history of the region. Mm-hmm. Iran is now going to have leverage to compel Israel to do what it doesn't want to do. But if it doesn't make the concessions, the chances that Israel will be destroyed are quite high. Not by Iran physically destroying it, but by making the place basically unlivable. That the Israelis are going to start. They're going to head back to the United States or back to Europe.
Yeah, Netanyahu is already got back to Europe. He's in Germany.
Yeah.
He's not. His son is not in Israel. He's not in Israel, and his family is not in Israel.
Yeah, his son is hanging out in gay bars in Miami.
He shows a true leader.
Yeah.
To Israel.
This is the Israeli rhetoric is going to be found to be completely empty as this goes on, because Iran now has the ability to genuinely cripple Israel, because we've seen repeated airstrikes both on Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, into Syria. But once those airfields are destroyed, you got some aircraft parked, but you can't get them off the ground. Then where are they going to go? Are they going to fly to Cyprus along with the U.S. Air Force? And then again, Iran can hit Cyprus. So this was so unnecessary, because Iran was willing to negotiate. And, I think we talked about this on Saturday. Who came up with the one guy in Iran that was preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon was the Ayatollah. His fatwa was issued, was it 36 years ago or 37 years ago? But, we're talking almost, 4 decades. And he, by his word as the spiritual authority, was preventing Iran from even considering building a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't know this. What is it? Ali Reza Arif? Is he one of the
Arafi? Ali Reza Arafi.
Arafi?
Yeah.
That he's rumored to become the new Ayatollah, the new supreme leader. And I don't know what if he's, I could conceive of him saying, you know what? Blessings be upon Ali Khamenei, but we now, in order to preserve the life of Iranians, we must have a nuclear weapon, because we know that with a nuclear weapon, we will no longer be attacked. I could see him go down that road. And again, there's always the risk Israel will be tempted to use a nuclear weapon, but boy, Israel has now pissed off the Kremlin. Putin and Lavrov, they are furious with Israel, because they had brokered a deal between Iran and Israel. Now Israel betrayed that deal, and the global repercussions for this go beyond just that immediate area. But it's the chaos is developing. All the economic investment that was in Dubai and Doha, people are getting the hell out now and rethinking, thinking about, I'll move to Doha, move to Qatar, we can live or to Dubai, live the big life. No, this war has changed that.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry, for being with us today.
Well, hopefully we'll have something more cheery to talk about come Friday, but I doubt it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, my friend.
See you soon, Larry.
Yes. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.